PerkyPlanes and RC here, operating at 2.4 gigahertz and empty once again. Oh well. So this is kind of a new thing, kind of a special request thing here on the channel. Something I've never done before, to actually kind of answer a general viewer's question. So anyways, viewer request here, special request here from a viewer, David T. Water. He left a comment on one of my Tiger Moth update videos saying, how do we know when to go from a foam plane to start working with wood? And it's a very good question. Something I've never really covered here on the channel. I just jump right into things, guys. You know, that's kind of how I am. I just jump right into things and go into it. Sometimes I give a little bit of an introduction to things. Sometimes I don't. It just depends. But anyways, with the balsa stuff here, I did sort of just jump right into it. So yes, a very good question as far as when do we know when it's okay to go from foam to balsa. And David, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I did see too that you had entered into the subscriber flight test speed build kit giveaway, and you're talking about building your first kit with your father and stuff. So I'm kind of assuming here that maybe you're brand new into the RC plane world, and maybe your first steps into this have been with flight test, which you know, granted, right now I'm full on balsa, and I've, you know, really kind of hot and heavy on that. I still, to this day, will support flight test. I think it's amazing what those guys do, and the big thing I especially love about flight test, unlike some of the larger foam companies, flight test promotes building. And the only difference, of course, is flight test uses different building materials like foam board and barbecue skewers and all that kind of stuff. So it's a whole different world, whole different set of materials. But flight test still does promote building in the hobby. So I'm all for that, definitely. And I did go through a big flight test period here on the channel as well. If you want to go back and look at some of my previous flight test builds. So anyways, back to the question here about when to go from foam to balsa. I think in my reply to you, I did mention that I felt like if you're asking, maybe you should go ahead and just take the plunge. However, you know, if you are brand new, you know, I think it's probably good to at least get a little bit of experience under your belt first, kind of getting used to building. And flight test, like I said, is a good approach, I think, to doing that. You know, one of the big things I would say as far as when's a good time, like I said, just, you know, whenever you feel the time is right. I felt like in my case especially that things just got a little bit stagnant and that I was just wanting more. You know, you kind of do something for so long and you kind of maybe just get a little bit bored. You want to mix it up and try something else and do all that. So, you know, definitely, you know, I think that's something that affected me, is I just sort of felt like it was time for a change. I needed to sort of just, in this case, actually get back to my roots, because I originally was a balsa plane guy. Way back in the early 90s is when I had started. Just at that particular time, it just wasn't the right time for me to do it. But I did really start with a balsa plane. So I wanted to show you kind of two fuselages here of just some projects that I've had. Kind of comparing the two and kind of giving you a little bit of an introduction into the world of balsa. First off, we're going to show you is a flight test build. Now this is the flight test FT Tutor. I flew this at the Flight Fest 2024 in one of their combat sessions, and you know, it's a good flying plane. I'm not going to lie, it was a good flying plane. As you can see, it's already a little bit wobbly there. I think that was kind of a mixture of both my crash in the field that happened, as well as being transported in the car. So it did not fare too well. You know, as a result, did not fare too well. But you know, that kind of gives you at least a little bit of an idea about as far as the material. You know, foam board, while it's a good well, it's a good start. You know, it is flimsy. It will break pretty easily. You know, so you got to be careful with these things. And of course, with Flight Test, one of their glues of choice to assemble these things is hot glue. And hot glue does has a problem too of softening up in the summer heat. So that's something that's an unfortunate drawback too with doing the hot glue approach. But anyways, there's the Flight Test Tutor. And the next one I'm going to show you here is a project that I had recently sort of wrapped up last year, and going to just do a few more quick things to it this year, and that is this Hare Cloud Ranger. I know it's almost the same type of plane, really, but yeah, the Hare Cloud Ranger. Now, the only, of course, difference here, of course, is that this is a balsa plane, and you can tell, you know, right there just how solid this thing is, and the elevator, the tail section here. This is epoxied on, so this is not just quickly put on with glue, with hot glue or anything. This is using like a 15 to 30 minute epoxy, and it is solid. It would take a lot of force for me to snap this thing. So definitely more solidly built. Okay, so that is one big thing here between comparing foam and of course balsa, is the planes are just so much more solid, so much more solid. Something I do want to mention too about if you are familiar with working with the Flight Test planes and doing their builds and stuff like that, the transition, I think, between the two, from going from a foam board build from Flight Test to going to like a balsa build, it's really about the same kind of general concepts. Lay your plans out, and then you start working with your materials and getting your materials in order and, you know, setting them up and everything. The only difference really is the types of materials you're going to be working with. You know, with Flight Test, you're doing foam board. With balsa, you're working with balsa sticks, balsa sheets, the whole 9 yards. You're working with all that kind of stuff. And also, the glues change. Like I said, with Flight Test, it was more like hot glue. You probably use things like foam tack and some other stuff like that. With balsa, you've got CA or super glue, you've got epoxy, you've got wood glue, and things like that. So, you know, that's kind of a difference in the comparison of materials. One of the big differences between the materials used is that with the foam board and foam glues, those are very quick to set and cure. And then things like the epoxy and wood glue and stuff like that, those take, of course, a little bit longer to set. So when you're doing a balsa build, it's going to be a little bit of a slower process. It's going to take longer to build, just because of the way the glues work. Now, you can also, of course, in a lot of cases, use super glue with balsa builds, and super glue is very quick. But like I said, on some of the bigger things with balsa builds, you know, it is going to take a little bit longer for the glue to set and everything like that. So just something to keep in mind. It's going to take a little bit longer for a balsa kit build to sort of come together before you're actually finished with it. So definitely allow more time. But like I said, in the end, you get a pretty darn solid airplane. More solid than those foam board airplanes. Okay? Yeah, this thing will last you. Unlike the foam board airplanes, which are very disposable. They're good for a quick flight, good for a quick thing, but this is something right here that can last you years. In fact, there are people still flying 30, 40-year-old airplanes to this day, balsa planes. So that just goes to show you the longevity of these things. So you get a much more solid plane out of it, something to last. So this is something else too, and I mentioned this in the comment to you, is maybe as a quick possible option to sort of start entering the world of balsa, is to maybe not look for a balsa kit per se, but maybe you can either check Facebook Marketplace, or if you've got like a local AMA RC club or something like that, contact somebody, contact someone from the club or on Facebook Marketplace to see if you can maybe score like an older, balsa model from like the 80s or 90s. Say some sort of a balsa trainer, for example, a 40 size balsa trainer. Because usually what happens in a lot of cases with those is that the user will have those and fly them for a little bit, then they'll sort of grow out of them and move on to other airplanes and other things, and these 40 size trainers or whatever kind of get left behind, and so the person is maybe trying to get rid of the thing, and so you could probably score one of these airplanes for possibly under $100. So you could possibly get a 40 size trainer or something like that for under $100 that may be fully equipped, or in some cases you might be able to pick up something maybe a little damaged that you can sort of keep as a project to sort of fix back up and put some new life into it. So that's an option. I know that if you kind of look back at the history of my channel, I'll see if I can link some of it here too. My father-in-law came across this old balsa trainer. It was a Hangar 9 model, and it was basically stripped of all the electronics, and there was no engine or anything else on it. In fact, it didn't even have landing gear. Okay, but the fuselage frame and the wing were completely intact in there. So all I had to do was buy servos for it, a motor or engine of some kind, and of course my radio stuff and new landing gear, and I was able to restore that thing back to life and do some flights with it. I did actually make it an electric conversion, is what I actually ended up doing, and but again, it was a neat little project to sort of get into, and it reminded me a lot of that first RC plane that I had when I was a teenager. So something like that. And like I said, I think he got that airplane for about $20 or $30, and it required a little bit of work, a little bit of parts and things to fix it back up and give it some new life again. So, it's just things like that. So, definitely check Facebook Marketplace, check, like I said, your local RC club, if there's one around, and see if anybody there has like an old model from the 80s or 90s that they're just willing to, offload, get rid of, and probably sell to you for a good price. And that will, granted, it's not building per se, but it can introduce you to a lot of the techniques and things used with these balsa airplanes. Something else with the transition from foam to balsa, for example, is that with a lot of the foam stuff and even flight tests and even some of their builds, you can get up in the air pretty quickly with those. You can, if you pick up a Horizon hobby plane, you can be up in the air in a matter of an hour or two. With a flight test plane, it might take you, a couple evenings to build the plane and then get everything all together and stuff. So it might take you, a relatively quick amount of time to get that thing up in the air and ready to fly it, okay? With balsa, it will take you longer, but the journey to get to that point where you can actually fly the thing is fun as well. This ability to be able to sort of take something from scratch and just create something out of it, no matter how long it takes, it's highly rewarding on that first flight, to actually see the thing from day one, and then all of a sudden the day of the maiden, to be able to go and take it up and experience it, and just have that joy of knowing that you spent a lot of time and a lot of work getting to this point, and it's so rewarding to get to that, so rewarding to get to that point. I kind of think of it like playing a musical instrument or playing a sport. You're not, when you first start playing an instrument or start playing basketball or football or something, you're not instantly good at it. It requires time, and it requires practice and lots of, blood, sweat, and tears to get good at it. To finally get to that sense of, finally get to that sense where you're actually good at that. And in the end, the reward is so great once you get to that point, to know that you can play songs or be able to play in one of your school's games or something. That journey is the thing. That journey is the key. And I think that's one of the great things that you get when working with balsa planes. With foam planes, you don't get much of that. There's not much of a journey there. You're just like, bam, up in the air and done. Whereas with these balsa planes, you know, there's work involved. And the accomplishment and everything you get out of it, it far exceeds, in my opinion, that little piece of enjoyment just from flying it. But, you know, you can like, well, I, you know, built this from scratch and, you know, did this and did that and everything else. And now I'm able to fly the thing. And the great thing is, too, as I kind of mentioned, is that this right here may not last you a long time. You know, these foam and foam board ones, they're not meant to last. They're just not meant to last. They're, you know, they're disposable. Very disposable. These things right here, these balsa ones, like I said, you can get 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years out of if you take care of it and don't crash it. That's another thing. But you can get a long time out of one of these. So, just something to think about. So, yes, and that, so basically, you know, there's a lot of benefits, you know, of course, to doing that transition from working with balsa. You get a much more rewarding experience out of the whole thing. And I know people that have built balsa models that were originally glow, converted them to electric, or people that are doing glow or doing electric and converting them to glow. And you know, it's endless what you can do with these things. You can sit there and you can honestly sit there and maybe later on decide, like, you know what, I've had this thing for a while. Let me take the ailerons out and put some flaps on it next. And make that into a project. And just sort of, you know, let the thing grow. And grow with you and grow with your experience and everything. So yes, I mean, that's in a nutshell. That's it in a nutshell, pretty much. I mean, you just get so much more satisfaction and enjoyment out of going from a couple pieces of wood to creating something like this. And then to be able to fly it. And I will say, too, another big benefit of doing balsa planes, and this is probably a very, very big and important one, balsa just flies better. And I can attest to that, and many other people can attest to that as well. But anyways, guys, that is all from me. David, I hope this helps in any way, kind of with your journey on things and building model airplanes. I'm hoping after you've done the flight test thing, maybe you'll grow and do some other things as well and start exploring more fun things in the hobby. So, but yeah, I've talked enough. That's all from me, guys. I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.